enlarge my screen. Okay, perfect. Right, so again, round two. Thank you very much for joining me today to answer my questions. If you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, I'd be really grateful.
I'm Catharine. I'm one of the family pupil barristers here at Westgate.
I'm Harriet and I'm doing criminal law.
And I'm Sofia. I'm also a family pupil barrister at Westgate.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right, so I've got some questions that you guys have already been sent, just the kind of questions that I know students are particularly interested in when they're considering future careers, because this is all about employability and careers for our students at this point. You know, we can teach them the grassroots stuff, but you know, they have to then go and explore what that might lead to for them in the future. So if I could ask all of you, did you always want to be a barrister? And if not, what was it that put you on the trajectory that you're on now?
To start, mine is very straightforward. I always did want to be a family barrister, and I always have been. My career prospects have always been set up and geared towards just sort of family law, in terms of that, undertaking a role as a family law paralegal, volunteer roles at family law legal centres, and etc. So for me, it was always a straight path, and I'm fortunate in that respect.
Excellent.
Mine's quite similar. I always wanted to be a barrister, and I remember it was time that I was applying for university, and all of my sort of tutors were telling me, you know, you need to go and get more experience. So I went up to London and I sat in the RCJ, Law Courts Justice, and I just went in and sat in and watched a trial for a day, which was quite fun. And then ever since then, I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool job. So I
got the bug.
Yeah, I just sort of put myself in that direction.
Excellent.
I'm gonna differ from my fellow pupils. I had not a very straightforward path to the bar. I had a previous career. I was in advertising for about 3 years, and so I didn't do law at university, and I went straight into advertising, not really knowing what it was that I wanted to do. And while I was there, it was during COVID that I started getting involved with different charities that needed support with volunteers. So I volunteered with a charity called PACT, which was the Prisons Advice Care Trust. And through that, I was then able to go and volunteer in courts where, like Harriet, I think it's a really great way to see the profession in action, which is to just go and sit at court. I was in the Old Bailey, and I got to see barristers doing the law and practicing every single day. And that was really inspiring. And I kind of felt at that moment that I wanted to do law, and I wanted to do it in court and not in an office setting. And that's what led me to the bar.
Do you think, I'm going to go off script slightly from the questions and just ask, based on a couple of the answers that you gave there, do you think it's really important for students, particularly at the age, so I teach from 16 to sort of up to 19, particularly important to go and get that experience while they're able?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just to start, it's definitely important, and you start to accrue as much experience as you possibly can. So I think one of the ways of doing that is sitting in open court as and when you can. With family, you don't necessarily have that privilege unless you're accompanying as a sort of mini pupil on some form of work experience, or otherwise attending as on behalf of the solicitors in some respects as a paralegal. So I think it's important that work experience is accrued either through sort of volunteer roles, legal clinics, writing articles, for example, for your local newspaper, or even your college newspaper or university. That can be helpful. Articles regarding updating case law, to that nature of what is happening in the legal world can greatly assist not only your ability in terms of your writing skills and how you understand the law, but also opening up a whole world of opportunities moving forward. So in short, yes, most definitely, it's imperative that you gain as much experience as possible from all of those avenues as you possibly can.
Amazing. I think that gives them, so it's something we're really, really big on here is on work experience. All students are expected to go out and get that work experience, and the students watching this will know that we do nag them, but the benefits of going and doing that, and going and, you know, even like you say, going and sitting in open court, go and watch what's going on. You know, it's immeasurable, really, you know, what the benefits that they'll draw from that. Sorry. No, carry on.
The great thing about sitting in open court is that anyone can do it. You don't have to apply for a job. You don't have to apply for anything. Just take an afternoon and go and sit in court if you can. And the profession can be very difficult to access. All you see is what you see in movies and TV shows, and it can be a little different from what you see in the media. And so the only way that you're truly going to know what a barrister does is by going and sitting in court. So I think if you are even slightly interested in the bar, going to court is how you will know if that's truly what you want to do.
Excellent. I think that's really, really great advice. From an academic perspective, obviously we're an FE college, so we teach, again, sort of 16 to 19. Worthing College itself is part of a bigger group, and they do lots of different courses at different sites, but we are predominantly A-level and applied qualifications here. Each of you, what school or college did you attend? Are you local, or are you from further afield? And then if you went to uni, which one did you go to, and what was your degree in? Just a bit of academic background.
Yes, so first of all, my school was in London. All of my schools throughout education, that's where I'm from. I was in state school, and then for college, I went to University City London College. It was a while ago, I can't actually remember. It was a long time ago. Then for university, my first university was Brunel. That's located just outside of London in Uxbridge. Second university was the University of Law, where I took the bar course and my master's degree. University of Law is a specialist sort of university where the bar course is undertaken. There are other providers as well. But for me, those were all in London.
So I come from sort of Portsmouth area, so I attended school on Hayling Island, which is where I lived, and I then went to college at South Downs College, which is in Pembroke. I didn't have astonishing grades. I had AAC, but I still got the university that I wanted, which was University of Southampton, where I actually got 2:1 degree in law LLB. So again, it's not, you don't have to be a first class student necessarily to do this career, and although academically you need to be bright, it's not like it used to be, sort of thing, where you have to be first class AAA. You know, as long as you're clued up, you know, you should be all right. Absolutely.
Yeah, again, I'm going to differ a little bit. I'm not originally from the UK, so I'm Portuguese originally, so I went to school outside of the UK. I hope that goes some way to show that, you know, different accents, different cultures, they're all welcome at the bar. And I came to London when I was 18 for university. I went to King's College London. I did an English literature degree, so I didn't do law. And I then, a couple of years removed from that, so I went back to university and did the GDL, which is the graduate diploma in law, to convert, and then did the bar course at the University of Law.
Fantastic. So there's a real range, you know, of sort of backgrounds. And I think, as you say, you know, Sophia, that it shows that there is there's not, so I'm a little bit older than you guys, and when I was looking at pursuing the bar, it was conveyor belt. You know, you had to do this and this, otherwise it wasn't going to happen for you. So it's really nice to hear that now there's a range of options and different routes in. It is very different. You know, I'm going back even, you know, you said Catherine, you know, hard to remember. It's even harder to remember for me, and it's really refreshing. It's really refreshing that that's changed so significantly. I'm going to ask a nitty-gritty question about the bar, and maybe try and dispel some perceptions about it. So typically, do barristers earn a lot of money? And it's always one they're going to ask. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I guess, in my opinion, I'd say it depends on the type of barrister and who you're speaking to, because the amount that somebody earns, whether it's classed as a lot or not, it kind of depends on the person. But I would say generally, I mean, my fellow pupils will correct me if I'm wrong. In my opinion, I'd say on the whole, it depends how much you choose to work and the type of work that you take and the level of work that you're at. So I guess there's no surprise in terms of seniority. The more senior you are, of course, the more heavily weighted financially your cases will, in no doubt, be compared to the junior end. That is in no way to suggest that the junior end is not affluent in terms of the amount of work given, because it absolutely definitely is. In a short answer, again, my fellow pupils will correct me if I'm wrong. Generally, yes, but it is, you're self-employed, and it's up to you how much you choose to work and what type of cases you choose to take on. And yeah, I guess seniority does play a part in that, but they will correct me.
I think it's that question as how much is a lot of money, because
it's all relative, isn't it? This is all relative, you know, absolutely.
There is a difference between sort of a criminal barrister to sort of like a commercial barrister, and you know, there's not really any sort of comparison there. But what I will say is it does depend. I know that's a really annoying answer, but ultimately it's how hard you're willing to work is how much money you can earn with it. And that's the beauty of being self-employed. You're not capped at a certain wage, and you can go, you know, work as much as you want or as less as you want, essentially, especially at the criminal bar at the moment, where there is so much work and such a lack of barristers as well, that there's so much work there. So it just depends.
I think it's a great answer though, and I think it's probably important for students to realise two things. One, that there's no sort of silver bullet that means that you're immediately going to be earning loads of money. You have to go out and earn it. It's relative to that, isn't it? You know, and also that there's probably a tipping point at which, you know, Catherine, you said about seniority, there's going to be a tipping point at which quantity then becomes quality, you know, so you might be able to do less but earn more for less as you move on and move up through the ranks. And so I think both of those things are really important. So it's about how much you're willing to work, but also then tenacity and sticking at it. Which is probably quite an important lesson for some students to learn, and they know what I'm talking about. So I think that's a really great answer.
I'll definitely make the case for, I know some people have a lot of doubts about being criminal barristers or legal aid barristers. I will say you work more and harder if you love what you do. And I'm a true lover of legal aid care work. Harriet does crime. You know, there is a lot of legal aid and family in general, and we all love what we do, and that kind of keeps you going. So yes, traditionally maybe you're earning less than the commercial barrister, but you're working more and enjoying what you're doing because that's truly your calling, instead of just going for where you earn the most.
And that's valuable too, isn't it? You know, you're enjoying what you do. And this is some conversation I had with Stuart earlier on when we were talking about his job, you know, to be privileged enough to work in a job that you love, and then still earn money from doing so, you know, is a huge thing. So I think that's a fantastic answer. Thank you very much. Typical working hours for you. What time do you start and finish on an average day?
I guess it depends on the day. So, sorry.
No, it's fine.
But it's the nature of the work in essence, because there could be a day that you're not in court for very long and you've got to do some admin. Certainly some of my supervisors, you know, they have to do a bit of admin or something like that. And then there may be days where you're working late nights, early mornings, because you've got a hearing coming up that needs extensive prep. So in long and short, the answer is it depends on the day, it depends on your week, it depends on the case. There are very long days, and there are some days where they're not very long at all. And then you're of course, you're self-employed, you get the benefit of choosing your own holidays. So that there is that aspect of it as well that helps sort of balance those long hours out. I guess it's an important point to make that being a barrister, you will work for long periods of time. That's the nature of the job. The job is a very important one for the majority of people that seek to request counsel. So it's important that time is taken to ensure that the work is done to the best of your ability. So I think that's more so where the long hours come in terms of like, you know, making sure the work is fully up to date, up to standard, and that you've covered everything. So I think that time reduces with seniority. So I appreciate it may not be a direct answer, but in long and short, depends on the day, depends on the case, depends on the week.
Yeah, and again, I think that's, yeah, it's an absolutely fair answer. I mean, you know, I can imagine there's very put my teeth in, sorry, very rarely are there 2 days the same, and so therefore it could vary from day to day, like you say. So that's again a very clear answer. Just veering into the sort of the work that you're doing and the fact that it's different on a day-to-day basis, are each of you able to tell me about the most interesting thing or most controversial thing, obviously only in the detail that you're able to do so, that you've worked on so far?
Sure, stop. Okay. Yes. So one of the most interesting cases that I've had recently was an FDR. And in essence, an FDR is around sort of financial disputes and sort of trying to negotiate and come to a settlement where both parties agree in the context of a divorce, I should specify. And what was most interesting about that was actually seeing counsel go between each other and actually try and hammer down an agreement with both of their lay clients. And I found that of particular interest because seeing where people's bargaining chips are and sort of knowing where to pull the string and where to let a little bit go, you give a little bit, I get a little bit, and we sort of have that nudge around, actually really helps the clients, because then what you end up seeing is a beautifully formed agreement that they've come to by consent, which is of particular importance, especially in regards to, you know, finances and divorce. Where parties can agree to that, they both sort of feel like they've won a little bit. Whereas on the flip side, if we go through to final hearing and we litigate on these issues, both of you are going to be very upset as to what the court orders, because nobody can necessarily predict to exact extent what the court will do at a final hearing, whilst you may have your presumptions. So in bringing it back to your question, I would say one of my most interesting hearings was in fact an FDR, where you see actually the background of counsel and the importance of having legal representation.
Excellent, thank you very much.
So I think the best thing about being a pupil is you get to follow your pupil supervisor around and they do all the best cases. So yeah. It's been really, all my cases are really interesting at the moment. There's a lot of sort of attempted murders, a lot of assaults, a lot of rape, sort of all the most serious crimes that happen in the Crown Court I'm involved in at the moment. So one of the first cases that I worked on with my pupil supervisor was an attempted murder, and it was essentially where a guy had stabbed someone 5 times to the abdomen, and it all came to the Crown Court, and essentially it hasn't gone to trial yet, but it's all this debate about what's attempted murder and did he have the intention to kill, and it's all very interesting stuff, and that's what I really enjoy about it.
I bet, yeah. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I'd say mine was quite a sad care case. It was one with a history of proceedings. There had been some proceedings in the past, and our client was quite ill, and she hadn't been able to fully participate in those proceedings in the past. And it was now coming back to proceedings for the same children, because the people who were looking after them at the time no longer felt they were able to do so. And that was really interesting because it was a matter of how do we get an individual who was unable to participate because of various reasons, how do we show that she's progressed, that she's made improvements. And it was a big fight, well, not a fight, it was a battle in between kind of us and the others in the case to go from her being at the back foot, from being in a position where she was being written off as a carer for the children, to, you know, how do we get her to, you know, getting her children returned back to her and getting her into a position where she is the primary carer again. So it was it was exactly why I love family law, which is how do we make genuine improvements in someone's life so that their future long-term prospects and their life is genuinely bettered, and we leave an actual mark on this person's life that she wouldn't have had we not been involved in her life. And that's why I really love family law, because you can have that very, very important mark on someone in a very vulnerable part of their life, and try to put measures in place that they can be bettered in the future without needing to get back to that place again.
I think the enthusiasm for all three of you, completely different answers, and yet the enthusiasm for what it is that you do is absolutely palpable. So I'm going to roll my next two questions into one, because I'm aware we're a little bit short on time. But actually, I think it's probably almost the same question anyway. So the two questions were, what is the most boring part of your day? And if you could change one thing about your job, what would it be? So I'm going to stick to the second half of that. If there was one thing you could change about your job and improve it in some way, what would that be?
So I think for me, it would be everybody who's more than competent and applying for pupillage should in fact get pupillage. I appreciate that's not something that would possibly ever really happen, just because of the amount of spaces that pupillage offer, and just the sheer number of applicants that apply every year. But I would hope that, you know, people that are very competent and, you know, would make a great barrister would have the opportunity to in fact do so. That's one thing I would change. I appreciate that's in a very hypothetical world that probably doesn't exist, but I think everyone that's deserving of it should absolutely get pupillage, and of course tenancy. So that would be my sort of.
I like that a lot. No, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Mine's sort of similar in that it's kind of hypothetical, but especially in the criminal justice system, if the backlog of cases could be cleared, that would be a help to a lot of barristers' day-to-day jobs, especially because there is such a lack of black barristers in criminal law, and clearing that backlog would just make such a difference, not only to barristers' lives, but people awaiting trials, families, victims. It's really painful stuff, and the longer it goes on, you know, the harder it gets for people. And then you have that period where people start losing faith in the criminal justice system as such, and you know, victims start withdrawing from trials, and then it all gets a little bit messy, and it just feels a little bit injustice when it gets to that stage. So if the backlog could be cleared, that would be amazing.
Could wave our wands, wouldn't it be amazing? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my answer is more of a day-to-day one. I think coming from a background where I did used to work in an office job, I think what I miss is not seeing my colleagues every day. I spend a lot of time with my pupil supervisor, but I know that the minute I get on my feet, it can get quite lonely. And so I think if I could have an environment where I'm seeing my colleagues more often, or you know, you have a bit more of that kind of office environment while still being self-employed, would be ideal for me. I understand why that can't happen as much, especially with working from home now. But certainly the bar can get a bit lonely, and so you have to put in measures to go for a coffee with your fellow pupils, or you know, see people at court, and try to make active days to go and chat about life, and trying to make sure you keep connections with people, because it can get a bit isolated sometimes.
Yeah, human connection thing's really important, isn't it? And I think, you know, the bar, as well as many other careers, I think COVID made a big difference, didn't it, to how things were managed and how things were done. And also technology has done that, and we experience that in teaching. You know, we don't even have team meetings anymore. It's all done on, so much of it's done online, and we join in a classroom, and so I totally understand that. That's all of my questions. I really appreciate. And is there anything that you can think of that you think I might have missed? Anything? I tell you what, one last question, if you've got the time, just one last question.
Yeah.
What single, and I asked this of Stuart earlier as well, so I'm going to ask you the same question. If you were to meet with one of my students who was interested in a career in the bar, what single most important piece of advice would you give them? apart from the work, you know, going out and finding the work experience thing?
I would say just don't give up. Like, it is such a grueling process, and it can be sort of hard at times to be like, you just want to give up. And if you just keep going and you're passionate about something and you really want to do it, and you put yourself in the position where you're getting all this experience, then you can do it. So yeah, just don't give up.
I like that. And I think that's a fantastic point to finish on. I mean, I don't know if either of you, Catharine, Sofia, if you have anything else to add to that, but I think that's a lovely point to finish on. Don't give up. Don't, keep the tenacity going. So I will say thank you very much. I'm just going to stop recording at this point, and then I'll thank you if I can figure out how to do that.
The only thing I was just going to say to that was absolutely just be yourself. So whenever you come to the stage of interviews, or in fact applications, irrespective of pupillage or not, always come as you are. So always just be who you are, exactly as you're going to be, and just deal with every situation as how you would. Don't feel as though you need to put on a mask or put on a face or persona. Of course, always be professional, but be as you are. So that's just what I'd add.
I'll get Bob. Sorry, go on.
The thing that makes you a little bit weird is often what makes you interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't stop recording, because that means I've got all of that. That is fantastic. They will love that, because that's the human element, and that's why meeting you guys is so important. It seems like such a far-flung, difficult career to access, and although I totally take on board what you're saying, it can be grueling, it can be difficult. Sticking at it and being yourself and having faith in yourself is so important. So no, that was brilliant. I'm glad I captured that at the very end. I'm just going to stop recording. So